All right. Welcome to the show. This is the Frankly Fantasy Football Podcast. We are your hosts, Frankie and Johnny. I'm coming to you live from Chicago, and apparently, according to Frankie's look, looks like somebody made the playoffs in a few leagues, huh?
Just a few, John. Just a few, good sir. I felt like, the sun never sets on a badass, right? So, put on the shades. It don't matter what time of day it is. All I know is that when you're in 4 leagues, you're in the playoffs in 2 of them, division leader in 1 of them, and did not have, for those listening, Nick Chubb get hurt, Aaron Rodgers get hurt, Ramondre Stevenson get hurt, Tank Dell get hurt, and it doesn't matter because Daddy was there ready, Johnny. So yeah, you know what? Had to ride in style this morning a little bit.
You know what, Frank? You should do a podcast. You're pretty good at fantasy football.
Yeah, just occasionally.
Hey, I'm in the playoffs as well. I snuck
Congrats.
in. I by the skin of my scrotum do the Tommy DeVito thing right here. Yeah, little Tommy DeVito. By the skin of my scrot, I made it in, man. But I made it in as high point man. By the way, I almost missed the playoffs as the high point man. Yeah. Fun fact: my son Jackson, first time getting in our leagues, second year doing fantasy football at all. High point man missed the playoffs. I've never seen any. I've done fantasy football for 25 years. I've never seen anybody get the high point man and not make the playoffs. And 8 people make the playoffs in a 12-team league, by the way. Very unusual. What's your take on that?
John, I thought, and this is a bold take, I thought Jackson's team was top 2 in the entire league as well. That is what happens when it's just bad luck sometimes in fantasy football. Sometimes it is just bad luck. You could have an amazing team and it's just shitty luck. And this also is interesting too, John, because and this would be really cool. We should actually talk about this, coming closer to draft time or even, after the season, we look back. What I'm getting at is, if you have so many options on your team when it gets closer to the end of the year, sometimes that can hinder you because maybe you don't know who to start between Mike Evans or Garrett Wilson or multiple others. And when you have too many decisions, rather than maybe trying to offload and package together and trade some of those guys to upgrade, sometimes you make a wrong decision. Not saying that was Jackson's case, but just saying it becomes a little bit more difficult as well. But shout out to him, man. You got to give flowers where flowers are due. You're getting $100, baby. And guess what? Be back for next year with a vengeance, brother.
Oh, he's going to be, believe me. Yeah. And actually, we're going to change that league. And this is the example of why you do this. I've always wanted to try the median scoring, where the top half of scorers get a win, bottom half get a loss, and then you get your head-to-head matchup. We've been talking about that, tossing it around for a while. We're going to do it next year, actually, and it's going to be that league, and he is the perfect case of why we're doing that. The high point man should be in the playoffs, man. It's just bad luck with your matchups, that's all. Welcome to the show, everyone. Hey, I want to welcome all of the new subscribers. We have had exponential growth over the past month of the season here. I want to welcome everybody and welcome. I'm Johnny. This is Frankie.
Hi.
I'm the good looking one of the group. Frankie's the nerd of the group who talks football and looks up all the stats and analytics. I'm just the monkey pushing the buttons and yeah, okay. Never mind. He's the monkey, folks. He's the monkey. Yeah. Can't even joke about it. But welcome to the show, everybody. I want to thank you all so much for subscribing. Yeah. We're at the point now where we can monetize, which is fantastic. We just appreciate you all so much. And all the people that are new to us, that have come to us, just want to give you, Frankie and I started this podcast 3 seasons ago. And we just sat down. It was during COVID. And we're like, hey, man, we talk about this stuff. We look into this shit all the time. It's almost like a part-time job anyway. Why don't we do a podcast? Let's do a podcast. We got together. We made it happen. It's gotten better and better. It's not where I want it to be right now, but it's certainly better than when we started 3 seasons ago. Do you agree?
Totally agree, man. And guys, I want to echo John's point. We do this for fun. Right. We're doing this because we love to do this, but you guys listening and watching and sending in comments and sending in questions and dialing in. It's incredible, and it's special to us. And I'm just going to be completely honest, because we love you guys. You are absolutely a part of the Frankly family, and let's continue to grow this son of a bitch, man. What do you say, John?
I say let's go. You know, for a while there, it felt like we were just screaming into the abyss and talking to no one out in YouTube world. And here we come to find out that we're like in the top 1% of all podcasts out there right now because of the following. Thank you so much, everyone. We really appreciate it. Please subscribe to YouTube. Please join us on Instagram as well. Really great follow, Frankly Fantasy Football, and share it. Share it with your friends. Guys, we got a lot of fun changes and a lot of fun enhancements we're doing for next year. Stick with us. I know a lot of people are dropping off because of playoffs and all of that and going to be off season soon. Stick with us because next year we come back in July after the 4th. It's going to be a great time. So I just want to thank you all so much. Speaking of, Frank, we want to shout out some people who have commented on last week's episode. So what kind of comments are we looking at last week, Frank?
Guys, what great questions and comments that you guys are sending all over the place. I want to shout out Chris Wood. He gave an excellent start-sit question to us. Chris, if you're listening, if you're watching, man, great job. It was totally something that was a difficult question, and it seemed as though it panned out. So really, Chris Wood, excellent. Jonathan Munguia, and I apologize if you're just a first time listener. That's a Frankism. I can't fucking pronounce shit. That's just, you gotta come on board.
Regular words. Frank can't pronounce regular words, so Chris, we're sorry that he can't pronounce your name. There's no way he's going to pronounce anybody's name properly.
So John, really, really appreciate that. And I hope you get your first place in that division because of what Frankly Fantasy had helped you accomplish. Another huge shout out. John, we're talking to a listener who's been there from the start. Aaron Luddle, shout out from Akron, Ohio, sent us over something to where he is in all 3 playoffs in 3 of his leagues and said it was because of Frankly Fantasy's advice. Almost made me tear up. That's phenomenal, man. Go fucking win it. Go get it done. All right. And 2 others, John, I want to shout out. Gabriel Carly Jones, my brother. You know, dude, you have been here from from day 1 episode for YouTube. You have been one of the first commenters and you've not fallen off. Brother, I hope you continue to dominate. You had some excellent questions. By far and large, some of the hardest questions we've ever been asked since we started this podcast, right? So, brother, we're here for you. We're going to continue to be that liaison between you and fantasy football. And one other call out to that is never apologize for taking advantage of us. Johnny takes advantage of me all the time, so take advantage of me as well. It's what we're here for. And lastly, Ja Griffith, you had a big time running back question, and I got to shout it out. It was Breece Hall, Austin Eckler, CEH. You came, you said, hey, listen, I'm thinking CEH. We ended up telling you, hey, man, Breece Hall's floor is a little bit shaky, right? CEH is a little bit unproven. I know it's sketchy. Go with Austin Eckler. And I think you're pretty happy how that panned off. Even though Breece Hall did really well this week as well, Austin Eckler held it down for you. So, guys, again, some of the top comments, and there were many, many more. We love you guys. Keep them coming, and let's bring home a Frankly Fantasy Championship.
Love it. Let's get to the news, baby.
The season after your listeners don't expect. Flip out.
News and notes.
Okay, Frankie, I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say that we're probably going to meet some new quarterbacks this week, just like we do every single week.
You promise?
I promise. I promise. There might be 2 or 3 in there that we're going to meet today. Let's get to the news here, guys. First of all, CJ Stroud in concussion protocol. Really brutal game for the Texans, man. They're banged up all over the place. Nico Collins has a calf strain as well, very similar to what Joe Burrow had in the offseason. Nico Collins is going to miss some time. I wouldn't drop him just yet, but you're going to be without him most likely through your playoffs. CJ Stroud, it's another situation. He's in the concussion protocol. I looked it up. Only 22% of people have gotten out of concussion protocol that same week to be able to play. However, they're very optimistic. Some guys recently, towards the end of the season here, magically have made it out of the concussion protocol. So maybe they're laxing it a little bit or something. But keep an eye on CJ Stroud. He's probably going to miss, but they're trying to get him on the field. Justin Jefferson, wide receiver for the Minnesota Vikings. This was weird, Frankie. Left the game with an internal chest injury, taken to the hospital.
Yeah.
It could be broken ribs. They're trying to get him out on the field. They're saying that there's actually a good chance that he plays this week. And if it is ribs, there's nothing you can do. They pad you up and everything, and you just get out on the field and go. But keep an eye on JJ. He was definitely heavily involved when he was in the game. So it'd be nice to be able to use him. Monitor his status this week. Josh Dobbs, speaking of Minnesota, he was benched, Frankie. I mean, here's a guy that wasn't on a team for a little while. He was a backup at the Browns, goes to Arizona, plays a couple of games, looks good, doesn't really know the playbook all that much either. Then goes to Minnesota, doesn't know the playbook at all, comes out and plays. Now, when he's actually learning the plays and getting into the system, he sucks. What's going on with Josh Dobbs?
You know, John, I'm just happy that I don't have to shave my eyebrows. That's what I'm happy about, right? Because a couple episodes for those listening and watching, Johnny and I had a little bet. If Josh Dobbs was leading them to the playoffs, or if he kept this up, I was literally going to have to potentially shave my eyebrow, right? So thank God. So secondly, John, it truly is. I think this is just a reflection on Josh Dobbs. I think he is a very good backup. I think that's what he is. I think that's just that is the pinnacle of who he is. And I think he's okay with that, right? So for me, man, I'm actually a huge fan of Nick Mullins. I think with him going to be starting, we saw what he could do at the 49ers, even at Cleveland, right? I think that he is actually a better overall quarterback, Nick Mullins. So I think this is definitely the right move for the Vikings. But yeah, it's tough to actually say why this has happened, because to your point, man, Josh Dobbs was electric the first few games and just tailed off. So I think it's just a matter of, you know, it's just showing who he actually is. And also other teams can now key in on his antics and things like that. It's not just, you know, something he's on a new team kind of from scratch and yeah, stuff like that.
All right, let's look at this week. Let's look at how we're gonna play this and how we're gonna plan for this. All right, let's assume that, all right, Josh Dobbs is not in. It's going to be Nick Mullins at quarterback. JJ is questionable. So if JJ plays, you're clearly playing JJ 100%. If JJ does not play, you're clearly playing Jordan Addison. Now, if JJ does play, can Nick Mullins support both JJ and Addison?
Yes. The answer is yes. And I'm saying that specifically from what we have seen prior to. We were against that with Dobbs. We kept saying, hey, we are not sure if Dobbs can actually support two receivers in addition to his tight end, right? There was TJ Hawkinson, who is the number one tight end in fantasy football up until this past week, pretty much. And so, John, yeah, in regards to Nick Mullins, we saw what he could technically do when he was throwing the ball with the 49ers. He was able to support 2 or 3 overall players, including that of the tight end. So, John, for me, man, I think it's possible. I don't think it's probable. And for his first week to be able to, like, he's going to be lighting up the scoreboard, right? So we have to make sure that we're level setting that expectation, but it is possible. I think it's much more possible, comparatively speaking, to that of Josh Dobbs.
All right. Well, on the next episode, when we start doing our starts and sits, let's look at maybe some would you rathers, comparisons with Jordan Addison. If Addison's alone there,
yeah,
are we going to play him, and who do you like better than him? All right, let's meet a new quarterback here, Frankie. Let's meet a new one. You know, we've got Nick Mullins. We kind of know him. He's acquaintances, Davis Mills. We're acquaintances. We know each other. We've had a few beers, This guy, never met this fucking guy in my life. All right, Justin Herbert, broken finger, having surgery today. He's out for the season. That sucks. This team has been an absolute dumpster fire. Bring in Easton Stick from North Dakota State. Is that right, Frankie?
That is correct. Drafted in 2019, 166th overall. Woo!
God damn it. I hate that you know that. First of all, tell me about Easton Stick, and does it matter at all?
John, it's so typical. I mean, this dude... he literally hasn't played since 2019. I mean, that's a long time. I mean, he just hasn't played. And so it's really going to be difficult. I mean, here's the real shit of it. He has a team around him with the pieces that can play. Let's just put it how it is. You have still Keenan Allen. You might have Joshua Palmer coming back in a week or two, right? You also have Everett, getting healthier. You also have Austin Eckler, Kelly. And what I'm getting at is you have pieces to be successful to a certain degree. We look at what Tommy DeVito's doing with nothing. I mean, come on now, right? And so when we look at Easton Stick, there's potential here. John, I am in no way, shape, or form going to be picking up Easton Stick or putting any sort of value in what he's done right so far, because that is as risky as it gets. So for me, man, I think we need to pause. I think what happens here is it could affect Keenan Allen for those that have Keenan Allen, right? Justin Herbert is in a class some people put him in the class of Joe Burrow. Some people put him in the tier below him. Either way, elite is how to describe Justin Herbert. That is nowhere in the same universe as that of Easton Stick. So the problem is going to be, is Keenan Allen going to now be downgraded in terms of, target share, being able to catch the ball, yardage, things like that? And does this increase Austin Eckler? Right. So for me, man, it's gonna be interesting to see how this plays out. I believe they're playing on Thursday night, if I remember correctly. And so I think that this is going to be the game that level sets the rest of the year, because this is a divisional game. It's against a good opponent in the Raiders. And so, but man, this is going to be tough sledding, I think, for Keenan Allen owners.
All right. We'll go into a little more detail here with the Thursday night preview that we'll get to shortly. Okay, Alexander Mattison, running back from the Minnesota Vikings. Potential high ankle sprain as they're looking at. I haven't gotten confirmation at the time of this recording. Could be 2 to 3 weeks. He's going to be out a few weeks here, man. You're probably going to be without him for your fantasy playoffs. Insert Ty Chandler. All right, what do we do moving forward here? We talked about already what to do with the receivers, with the quarterback. Now you've got Ty Chandler coming in. Based on what they've got coming up in the playoff schedule here, specifically week 15, how do you feel about Ty Chandler?
John, I actually feel decent about Ty Chandler. I think that the Vegas Raiders on Thursday, it's going to be Cincinnati. At Cincinnati this week. So Cincinnati, John, it's going to be tough sledding, but I think that if he's going to get the lion's share of the load, and with quarterback switch, I don't think they're going to put full emphasis on like unleashing, in quote unquote, unleashing Nick Mullins, if you can say it like that. But what I'm getting at is they're going to need somebody else. So for me, man, I actually am leaning towards firing up Ty Chandler. I think that this could be very interesting. Jake Browning is playing out of his mind right now. So that's really fascinating what's kind of happening there. But from the Minnesota Viking perspective, I think that Ty Chandler, when he's gotten the opportunity, John, he's performed decent. I mean, when week 10 against a very good New Orleans team, he had 10.5 points in FPPR. In week 11 against what's turned around to be a damn good defense with the Denver Broncos, after they got their shit pushed in week 3, they ended up doing pretty well, and he still put up 13 points. As soon as Mattison came back, he went down to 1.6, 5.7, and now he gets the lion's share of the load again. So for me, man, when looking at the rest of the schedule, right, it's this coming week at Cincinnati, next week Detroit, the following week is your Super Bowl at Green Bay. All of those I'm not afraid of. And so I actually really like, in deep leagues, Ty Chandler.
So I'm looking at him as probably a low-end running back 2. Double-digit fantasy points is what you're shooting for at that point.
Yeah. Your ceiling there, guys, is probably going to be 13 to 15. Your floor, I would assume, is probably going to be around 5 to 6.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Sounds good. Josh Jacobs, questionable for Thursday night football. Could miss with a quad/knee issue. You've got Amir Abdullah and Zamir White. You've got Amir and Zamir backing him up here. If he can't go, are you interested in either of these guys at all?
John, not really. If I'm being honest with you, not really. I mean, because one of them are going to pop. Not really sure which one. I'm probably leaning more actually Zamir White, even though he didn't get much of the load when Jacobs went out. So it's just too torn at this point in time. With a Thursday night game, I'm not willing to anchor on either of those guys.
And it's not like this team's been scoring a lot of points. I don't know if you saw that dumpster fire last week.
What was it, like 30 to 25? 30 to 24?
I believe it was, I believe they had 0. Was that right?
0 to 3.
That was awful. Hey, get your shit together, NFL. Amazon sitting here going, hey, we paid how many billions for this? What the hell is going on here, man? Unbelievable. Okay, a couple other guys here. Tutu Atwell's in concussion protocol. Tyreek Hill with an ankle.
Huge.
They're not saying anything about this. Monitor this all week. They're going to be cute about it because we saw how important Tyreek is to this Dolphins offense. He is the Dolphins offense right now. So keep an eye on that. They're going to play games with it. You know that Mike McDaniel's going to do that. Watch him all week. But Tyreek is hurt with an ankle injury. Hopefully he'll play. All right, Darren Waller, some good news here. To practice this week, coming off of IR, Darren Waller to practice. He wants to get a little bit of that Tommy DeVito love. You know, he's like, hey, give me some of that. All right. The Tommy Cutlets, is that what? The Cutlets? I like that.
So good. So good.
So good. All right, let's check out some of these guys that were on ice and that were on fire. And, let's see if Frankie can help us figure out what the hell to do with these misfits.
Oh, Charlie! That's why I'm a misfit toy. My name is all wrong. No child wants to play with a Charlie in the box, so I had to come here.
Where's here?
We're on the island of misfit toys.
Okay, let's get to the island of misfit toys here, Frankie. What are we going to do with these guys? All right, on ice, they got some quarterbacks that just absolutely killed us here, man. I mean, I've got the Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown stack once again this year. I'm hoping it can get me to the Super Bowl just like it did last year. I traded for AJ Brown late in the season. I haven't seen shit out of him since I got him, by the way.
Yeah.
Here he is. He was breaking Megatron's record or trying to break Megatron's record of consistent games with 120 plus yards in a game. I get him on my team, and he's done nothing. Jalen Hurts, killing me, dude. Jalen Hurts with 6 points this week. What I mean, is that just playing against a great team that obviously was very well coached, schemed against him? There's better days ahead, right? Please tell me, Frankie. I'm looking at week 15, 16, 17. Tell me. There's better days ahead for Jalen Hurts, man.
There's better days ahead for Jalen Hurts. For those owning him, you just take a big old sigh of relief. It's coming. They went through.
USA.
One more time. They went through the meat grinder. They really did, John. When you look at their last few weeks, from coming out of their bye week in week 10, they played Kansas City, they played Buffalo Bills, San Francisco, and Dallas all in a row. That is a meat grinder. You have two high-powered offenses, extremely high-powered offenses, actually three, with that of Buffalo, Dallas, and San Fran, and very good defenses with that of Dallas, Kansas City, and San Fran. So, John, they absolutely went through the meat grinder. And what was interesting, I actually think San Fran broke the Eagles a little bit. And what I mean by this is I think that they figured out the code on how to actually stop Jalen Hurts. And you started hearing rumblings about it with Nick Bosa talking about it and things like that. And they actually are talking about like, yeah, we figured it out. We know how to stop Philly now. And then Dallas kind of mimicked exactly what San Fran did. And it was brilliant by Dallas. Now, Dallas, you got to give flowers where flowers are due. They might be the best team in the NFL as it stands right now. They're definitely the hottest. Dak is right now. I mean, you can make the argument if you want for Dak for MVP. That is how good he's playing. He's up there with he's right up there with Brock Purdy, which is crazy to say, your favorite player, John, of all time, and Tyreek Hill. So for me, man, I actually think that it's just been because of they've been through a meat grinder, and I think San Fran kind of broke them a little bit. Here's the positive news, okay? Guys, and the reason why we're talking about this, Jalen Hurts had 6 points in half PPR in fantasy football. Here's why there is good news and sunshine on the horizon is that they end up playing at Seattle this coming week. Okay, it's not a grand slam by any means of a matchup. It's also not a meat grinder type of matchup. This is something that can get them back on track. And now, John, they have absolutely everything to fight for. They have not only the division title on the line, the overall NFC number one spot on the line now with the Dallas Cowboys and that of the 49ers. Everything is on the line for Philadelphia Eagles. And then after this week, man, listen to this. The New York Giants are going to Philly. And then you have the Arizona Cardinals going to Philly. If you can just get past this week, John, I promise you, I would do a bet right now. Jalen Hurts doesn't get under 19 fantasy points in those other 2 weeks. Okay. So that's
a very specific line. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I just feel like it's that possible. And he's averaging, the reason why I say that is he's averaging 23 points right now. He's the number 2 quarterback in fantasy football, and he's the number 2 overall scorer in fantasy football right now. So that's why there's better things on the horizon. I just think they went through a meat grinder. Team is tired. Their defense is beaten up. They need a gimme week. And I think this is a get right type of path, type of week.
Okay, good. I feel better. I feel better because I was freaking out a little bit. All right, a couple other quarterbacks. Jordan Love, we've been high on him, man. I mean, we had him as a start of the week the past couple of weeks here. 9 points out of Jordan Love. They got were they just out-coached and out-schemed? I mean, they just got beat up.
They looked, John, Jordan Love looked like shit is really what it looked like. The last few weeks, man, he has been nothing short of incredible to the level of, okay, if we even go back to week 10, it's 21, 20, 32, 27, leading into the Giants game and with playoff hopes on the line. And he just looked out of sync. It was, I don't even know if it was a bad game plan because I actually think Matt LaFleur called a decent game plan. I just actually think this boiled down to Jordan Love had an off night, and that's what it was. Day. Yeah.
That's a terrible shame, man. I mean, so Jordan Love, now we're not so confident in him after what he just did. Should we feel really good about him at home against Tampa Bay this week? You can throw on Tampa Bay.
You can throw on Tampa Bay. And I think, yes, I'm still going to ride in the flames with that of Jordan Love. I think that if Christian Watson can get healthy and he ends up rolling back out there, we saw a lot of good things from A.J. Dillon and Taylor, their running backs. And John, one of our starts of the week in Jaden Reed exactly performed how we wanted him to. So for me, man, I think that this is a get right week. Tampa Bay's going to be fighting their nuts off, right? They're number 1 in their division at 6-7. The playoff hopeful Packers are not out of it. They are not out of the playoffs. So they still need to just take this and win. They play Tampa Bay, Carolina, Minnesota, and Chicago. All 4 of those are winnable games. It's going to be reliant upon Jordan Love's play, and I'm going to roll with him.
All right, we got Jared Goff now, quarterback for the Detroit Lions. Dude. I'm Confucius here, okay? I'm so Confucius. I don't know what to do with Jared Goff at this point. Terrible week, 6 points. I mean, just 161 yards passing for Jared Goff. You know, Amon-Ra was right there with him. Let's just lump those two together because so Jared Goff goes, so Amon-Ra goes. Do we just throw this week away? Was this just a bad week? Same thing, an off week? But yeah, this team seems to be a little vulnerable at this time. They're not quite the juggernaut that they used to be. They're not eating the Velociraptor eggs and working the glamour muscles like Coach Campbell is. What are we doing moving forward, Jared Goff? We've got Denver at home this week. We've got to like that matchup, right?
So, John, I'm actually a little nervous about this matchup. If I'm being completely real, like Denver's defense has absolutely stepped up. So, and I think I'll have to go back and check this, that they're on a 5-game or 6-game win streak right now. I mean, John, they are right back in the hunt for the playoffs, man. This Denver team that everybody wrote off after that Miami game. Nobody took them seriously. And now Russell Wilson is doing Russell Wilson shit again. And it's really coming together with Javonte getting healthier. You're starting to see Courtland Sutton really take ownership of that first role, of that receiver one type of role. So, John, I'm actually a little bit nervous, but here's the deal. Jared Goff has only had one other game outside of this past week without double digits. I don't see it being this week against Denver. I think it's a get right week. I think that they realize what happened. They cannot drop the next few games, especially with the way that the Vikings have playing. They just won this past week, even though it was 3-0. It was uglier than hell. They still won. They got a W in the win column, which means that they're inching ever so closely to that of actually Detroit. So for me, man, I mean, I think that there's a lot more on the line for Detroit than what people actually realize. And I think Goff is going to have a bounce back week. So I think we need to temper expectations. I don't see Goff going nuclear. I actually see them going right at that, easy peasy 17 to 20 mark, for golf this week. And Amon-Ra is definitely going to have a bounce back week. It was shocking, actually, at how bad he looked. He just couldn't get the ball.
All right, let's talk about this. Is a guy I am worried about. This guy, Stephon Diggs. He's had a couple of rough weeks here, man. 4 points out of Stephon Diggs. He's one of those guys that you've got to keep him happy. When he's not happy, he's a problem. He's a headache in the locker room. He's not happy right now. You have to start Stephon Diggs, right? We can't play this game where we're going to get that cute. But what are you thinking here moving forward, especially this week?
John, you have to start him. This is a really, really awful matchup. This is as bad as it probably gets, right? I mean, we're talking, they're playing Dallas at home. The good thing that they have is that it's at home. You're probably hoping that it snows at this point. That way you throw in some extra bullshit towards Dallas. But the good news is knowing how aggressive this defense is, they're going to need to throw the ball. And so, John, you always need to fire up Stephon Diggs. But to your point, there is some vulnerability that's happening within this Bills defense or offense. Like we're seeing Gabe Davis with another goose egg. We're starting to see these other players not doing well. And you know what this is going back to, what people aren't thinking about? Ken Dorsey is no longer the OC. There's a brand new OC over the last few weeks. And what we've seen happen is this has become making James Cook an absolute superstar. Okay. And so what's happened is they're still targeting Stephon Diggs, right? So it's not like they're completely going away from him. If I look back, he had 11 targets this week. Before the bye week against Philly, 11 targets. Before that week against the Jets, he had 8 targets, right? Dominating target share. It's been tough sledding. And Josh Allen has been, as good as he's also been a little bit inaccurate, right? He's leading the league in interceptions. So all of this is kind of coming together as like, this is kind of why Stephon Diggs isn't doing very well in comparison to what he was doing, right? So for me, man, you always have to fire him up. I was actually talking with a few of the guys that were commenting on the YouTube channel, and they were like, yeah, I'm kind of thinking, I might want to sit him. For me, I'm never sitting Stephon Diggs. I'm never sitting him, even if it's the hardest matchup ever. His upside is way too high. His ceiling is too high. He's one of the only players that can get you 40, 50 points and actually do it. The problem is making sure, though, if you're going with a player like Stephon Diggs this week, I would also go with either you need to shoot for the stars and go another ceiling, or go with a super high floor, depending on how your team is constructed. Because if Stephon Diggs has a 4 or 5 point game, right, or under 10 points, now you have the safety net of a super high floor guy. Or if you went really crazy and went ceiling, you're praying for that ceiling guy to overcompensate then for Stephon Diggs. So really think about your strategy this week if you're looking to fire him up against this type of defense.
Yeah, if you're in an 8 or 10 man league, we'll give you some options on the Friday episode because you may not want to start Stephon Diggs. If you're in an 8 or 10 team league,
true,
and you've got a stockpile of weapons there, you may want to put that one back in the holster for a little bit.
John, question on that real quick.
Yeah.
Because this was a question that we had last week. Would you start, or a couple weeks back, would you start Stephon Diggs if you had to pick one? Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen, or Amon-Ra St. Brown? Or excuse me, you have to pick 2. Is what it was.
Yeah.
Knowing this week.
I'm always throwing Stephon Diggs in that mix with those guys. I mean,
yeah.
I just am. Here's the thing that makes me nervous about him is that, yes, you can say you always throw him out there because he's a superstar and he's playing Dallas, but he scores constantly and he's targeted heavily. I would feel better about it if he's been throwing out 20-point weeks leading up to the Dallas game. He hasn't been. He's been very, very, very quiet. So that makes me nervous. We'll dig into it a little bit, guys, and we'll see if we can give you a little more info come for the Friday episode here. Okay, let's talk about the Houston offense briefly. Is there anyone? We've got Pierce was terrible, Stroud was terrible, Noah Brown, Goose, he was terrible. We've got Nico Collins out, we've got Tank Dell out. Let's pretend Stroud plays. Can you play any of these guys this week after how they performed last week?
John, no. The answer is no. And this is heartbreaking for me as a Stroud owner who also had Tank Dell. John, what we have seen is without Nico Collins, without Tank Dell, right, they don't have very many people. Noah Brown cannot hold it down as a receiver 1, okay? And so for me, man, I actually think I am sitting CJ Stroud as well this week. If assuming he plays, right? You're coming off the concussion protocol. No. And you start looking at, right, who it's at Tennessee. Tennessee just held Tua to a damn competitive game. Then you go to Cleveland. Cleveland's defense is nasty. So no, I'm not starting him there. Then you go back to Tennessee. John, bold remark here. I don't know if you can start CJ Stroud moving forward for the rest of your fantasy playoffs. Are you willing to do this against a two very, very, very good defenses? I don't know. With Arden Key back now with the Tennessee Titans, that defense looks a hell of a lot different, right? He's really coming on strong. And then you look at Cleveland. Yeah, they've been a little bit banged up, but man, they're a damn good defense. So for me, man, without the pieces necessary, without Collins and without Tank Dell and with how banged up they are and CJ Stroud getting a concussion, we need to really play this week by week. But this week, I'm not starting any of them.
All right. That's the answer I needed to know, man. All right. Let's get to some fire here. There's a couple of guys I want to talk about. And guys, we're talking about guys that are, we have questions about. We have guys, we're talking about guys who did very well, and we're going, are they going to do it again? Can we play them? Joe Flacco, quarterback for the Cleveland Browns right now. Let's talk about it for a second, okay? 303 last week with a victory. Okay, the Browns are going to make the playoffs. Joe Flacco is going to play in a playoff game this year. All right, what are we doing this week in particular? Is Joe Flacco a streaming quarterback candidate moving forward and through the playoffs?
Damn right that boy is.
I just want to, for those of you listening, Frankie's putting on his sunglasses. He's making gestures. I don't know what any of that means, but I'm sure it's some sexy dance. It looks good. I like it. Okay.
This is me getting Joey Flacco onto my team. I'm calling it out, manifesting it, putting on my sunglasses because the sun doesn't set on a badass. And you know who's a badass? Is Joe Flacco. Okay. And for those listening, Joe Flacco throwing over 300 yards and he's 300 years old. That's unbelievable. Okay. And secondly, the lineup that he has, the teams that the Cleveland Browns are playing against, you have the Chicago Bears. Yeah, Chicago looked really good against Detroit. I don't see that replicating again. I think that Joe Flacco is going to throw for another 300 yards? No. Do I think that he has the ability to still have over 20 fantasy points, especially with the entirety of the quarterback landscape in shambles pretty much? Yes. So for me, this is a really interesting opportunity. Amari Cooper is going to be healthy, right? Or healthier, right? You have Elijah Moore. We're starting to see that. And Njoku is becoming an insane fantasy play and an insane fantasy star. So for me, man, yeah, you can absolutely fire up Joe Flacco this week, especially if you're down on quarterbacks. You might be looking at Stroud. I'm not firing up Stroud. I'm actually looking to pick up a guy like Flacco. So yeah, John, I think you can.
Browns are 6-1 at home. They play the Bears at home this week, man. Pretty crazy. All right. Let's look for some other quarterback streamers. All right. We had to introduce ourselves to some new quarterbacks this year, but let's look at some streamers for the playoffs here, especially for this week, Frankie. I'm going to name some guys and I want you to kind of pick out a couple and say, you know what? I like this guy's matchup here. And this is why. I'm talking about Jake Browning, quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals, Matthew Stafford, quarterback for the Los Angeles Rams, Desmond Ridder for the Atlanta Falcons, and Will Levis, rookie quarterback for the Tennessee Titans. Any of these guys tickle your asshole a little bit, give you a little funny feeling that maybe you could stream one of these guys and get cute if you've got Justin Herbert, for instance, CJ Stroud, for instance.
Yeah, John, there's two. There is two in here. And I'm leaning Jake Browning and that of Matthew Stafford. Jake Browning, fun fact, the last 3 starts, John, he has had the highest completion percentage in 3 consecutive starts in NFL history. 79% in NFL history. Okay, this dude, and I talked about it earlier on, was incredible at Washington. He's broke Pac-12 records constantly. He ends up coming to Cincinnati or wherever the hell he actually came to. I don't know if Cincinnati even drafted him, but eventually just became a backup and just sat there. So for me, now that he's getting the opportunity, John, the team is rallying around him, and so is Burrow. That is a huge, huge part of this. Joe Burrow is another coach to him. And so, John, when we start looking at why I'm like this, or why I think that Jake Browning, it would be a guy that I would stream, they're playing Minnesota. Minnesota, Yeah, their defense has been decent as of late. I really like the tandem of what Jake Browning is doing and what Zach Taylor is doing from a running perspective. They're getting Joe Mixon involved. They're bringing in Chase Brown, the backup running back, to do more scat back stuff with. We saw him take one to the house of 54 yards last week. And then you're feeding your top player. You're not overcomplicating it with Jamar Chase. So all of this combined, Cincinnati's still in the hunt for the playoffs, John. And so I actually think that I would definitely be looking to start Jake Browning if I had the opportunity to this week in streaming him and ride the wave of what he's been able to do. John, the next,
Stafford,
go ahead.
Stafford, it's all about schedule and it's about the talent he's surrounded by, right?
Definitely, John. And that's exactly it. With Stafford, I mean, guys, listen, he's playing Washington, New Orleans, and the Giants. Okay. I'm taking Stafford in every single one of those matchups, and I'm not thinking twice about it, right? You look at what Stafford has done since their bye week, John, 11.7 points against Seattle. Tough sledding there, right? But 32 points against Arizona, 30 points against the Browns, almost 30 and 28 against the Baltimore Ravens. Very good defenses. I'm rolling with Stafford, brother. So those two guys, Stafford would be my number one, Browning would be my number two.
All right, I like it. A couple of running backs we had on fire here. Zeke Elliott, we talked about that, 23 points. I mean, Zeke's a guy, you feel good about starting Zeke in week 15 this week here?
Yeah, John. So Zeke, definitely. I mean, what we're starting to see from Zeke is that, I mean, he's the bell cow, right? So where they're playing Kansas City, I know it's tough, right? Kansas City's a tough matchup, but yeah, I'm firing him up. I mean, when he got the lion's share, brother, it was beautiful. He ran the ball 22 times, 68 yards, and added 7 receptions for 70 yards. Okay, and a touchdown. So he is replacing what Ramondre Stevenson did from the receiving end, and then still being in the lion's share of the load from what he was basically splitting with Ramondre. You got to start him moving forward.
He's really all they got, man. He really is.
Yeah.
All right, hey, Austin Eckler, he's back. Awesome Excellent is back. Austin Eckler, thank God, because now it's a total shitstorm. We'll talk about it a little bit on the Thursday Night Football preview, but just wanted to shout out Austin Eckler is back, 18 points out of him. Frankie, there's one guy here that I want to see your thoughts on. I know, let's take away our emotions, okay? We're Browns fans, for those of you who don't know and haven't watched the podcast for very long. We're Browns fans, and I want to talk about Odell Beckham Jr. for a second here, okay? Odell Beckham Jr. had 18 points this past week. He seems to be very involved. They're throwing quite a bit, man. The running backs are kind of worthless at this point. Lamar's running a lot again and throwing the ball a lot down the field, and it's really going to Odell. Is Odell a guy that you're looking at flexing this coming week?
Yeah, John, I am actually. And, they're playing at Jacksonville. We saw what the Browns just did to Jacksonville, right? Joe Flacco threw 311 yards, and Lamar is way better than Joe Flacco. And so what we've seen from OBJ over after the bye week, because you have to remember, wherever the bye week was, they're adjusting, they're changing things, they're reprogramming their offense and instituting new ideas and schemes. Huge. They targeted him 10 times, John, the most he's been targeted all year. And so now coming out of that, yeah, he only caught 4, but he had a couple broken plays for 97 yards and a touchdown, man. So for me, yeah, I mean, especially if they're playing at Jacksonville, I definitely think in heavier leagues, like or larger leagues, like 12 to 16 man, you can flex out OBJ.
God, I hate that I agree with you.
I hate him.
I do.
I hate him. Hate that I have
you know
to
what?
say that.
You got to separate your head and your heart. My heart says, fuck you, Odell. But my head is like, he's a viable play this week, actually. Yeah, you could totally flex him. He's been getting a lot of targets. All right, man, let's look at the Thursday Night Football preview. I was just going to say, God, I hope it's better than last week's. And I don't know that it's going to be, man. I really don't. We've got a massive battle ahead of us. Clash of the Titans here. West Coast battle. Los Angeles Chargers at the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders are favored by 3 with an over-under of 33.5. Okay, we've got Easton Stick versus Aiden O'Connell. Who doesn't fucking want to watch that? Give me the popcorn, baby.
Woo! Wow.
Yeah, I know. All right, so we got into the Chargers already. We talked a little bit about what's going on there. in my mind, you fire up Keenan Allen because it's Keenan Allen, and you just hope that he gets some connection with this guy, Easton Stick. Stick to Allen. And Austin Eckler. The schedule's too good. The defense, you can run, and that's it, right? You're not starting Quentin Johnston. You're not doing anything else. Am I right?
Totally. Don't get cute. Just
maybe Dicker the kicker, okay? Because they're probably only going to score field goals.
Put on Dickie out there. Get him out there and kick some balls. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'm just glad that there's a new story for all of the shows to talk about and because it seems like they just grab one of these shitty quarterbacks and create a story out of it. And it cracks me up because these stories, guys, they're gone after this season. You're never going to see Tommy DeVito again. You're never going to see some of these guys again. Okay, so for the Chargers, it's Keenan Allen, and you're crossing your fingers, and it's Austin Eckler because he's probably going to get a huge dose of the ball.
Definitely.
Yeah. All right. Let's look at the Raiders, man. What are you thinking about the Raiders?
It's just as good. It's just as good. You're firing up Devontae Adams and maybe Jacoby Myers, maybe, depending on John. That's pretty much it. I mean, if you desperately need a running back, I flip a coin for either or. I'm not doing it. I wouldn't even remotely do it. I might put one on my bench just to see what happens. Maybe you catch lightning in a bottle for 2 weeks, something like that. But John, it's Devontae Adams, and that's it for me, literally.
Keep an eye, like we said, keep an eye on Josh Jacobs. He might be able to play, but it's not looking great with the short week on Thursday. So keep an eye on him. I was really hoping it was just going to be Austin Eckler and Josh Jacobs just running the ball every time. Just let's see, give them 4 opportunities every 4 downs and just see if they can score touchdowns.
That would be awesome.
That would be so much better than watching these two guys play quarterback. I guarantee it. Predictions on this one. I can't believe it's a 3-point line. I think they're just like, I don't fucking know. You tell me.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's like, I honestly think I mean, this is impossible to predict. I mean, I'll probably lean in the hometown team just because you're at home, but it's not even like the Chargers got to travel far. You know what I mean? So there's no travel issue. I mean, so yeah, man, I mean, maybe Raiders -3. Yeah, this is a game I'm not going to bet on, just so you know.
No, and man, all these people that are paying 4 or 5, I mean, the bottom for seats at this stadium, by the way, I looked at it, 300, 400, 500. That's minimum to get tickets to this game. I believe me, I've been to Vegas a couple of times this year, and I'm like, I want to go to a game. I will get to one, but it's not going to be fucking Easton Stick versus Aiden O'Connell. No. I'll tell you that right now. All right. Guys, don't forget there's games on Saturday as well. Wanted to shout that out. 3 games on Saturday this week. Pay attention to all of this because there's going to be games in goofy times during the holidays here, guys. Saturday early, we've got the Vikings at the Bengals and Steelers at the Colts in the afternoon and Broncos at the Lions. So pretty interesting. All of those teams fighting for the playoffs right now. Should be some good games, man. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. That is our Ice and Fire episode with our news and notes and meeting new shitty quarterbacks. Frankie, what do we got coming up the next episode here on Friday?
Guys, we got coming up your favorite episode of Start and Sit. Who are we smashing and passing, and who do we hit it and quit it? So, guys, we're going to get you prepared for some awesome Start and Sit questions. Keep them coming, and we want to get you ready for your playoff matchup. So tune in. John, we're going to be dropping that bad boy on Friday. Get you ready for your weekend ahead.
Thank you again for subscribing. Please, if you're listening, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're just on the YouTube channel, subscribe to on Spotify and Apple and Google as well. Why not? Mix it up. Help us out, guys. We appreciate you. We love you so much. May the fantasy gods smile upon you. Bye.